to kick off summer. So that's going to be a good time. But I get to spend the next few minutes with all of you, and I'm excited about that. There's a few things going on this week I want to make sure you're aware of, and then coming up in the future. This Friday is Her Night. So ladies, we really want to encourage you to come on out, be a part of Her Night. We've got vendors, we've got food trucks, we've got a special guest speaker. Pastor Brooke Bates from Morrisville Assembly is coming up. Her husband Eric preached our Dudes Day event a couple of years ago, and so now she's getting to come up and preach at our Her Night, and so we're really excited about that. We'll have free coffee drinks and fruit drinks for people that don't drink coffee. We'll have all that available for you. It's going to be a great time. So this Friday, 5 to 7 is outdoor activities and the stuff in the basement, and then 7 o'clock we'll kick off the service up here, full worship, ministry, and all of that stuff. So ladies, bring your friends. Invite ladies groups from other churches. Share the event on Facebook and get your friends excited to come. We're really excited about this, so we want a good showing. And I know Sarah and her team have worked really, really hard on that also. So all of that's going on this Friday. Kids Camp is still, we've got Kids Camp signups. If you haven't signed your kids up for Kids Camp, we want to make sure you're able to do that. And then I just want to put this out to you now. I'll talk about it again on Sunday. But 4th of July is right around the corner, and our 4th of July week, our schedule is going to be a little bit different. So the offices will be closed that Thursday before 4th of July. Offices will be closed. We're going to have one service on July 5th. So that's Sunday, July 5th. We're going to have one service at 10 a.m. So a combined service. That's always fun when we get to have a combined service, but there will be no Sunday school, one service on July 5th. And then we're going to have a special baptism service at Lane Springs on July 5th in the evening at 6 p.m. So if you have not been baptized in water, I really want to encourage you, sign up for a water baptism service at Lane Springs. It's going to be a great time. Last year we had 15 people get baptized at Lane Springs, and I believe we can beat that this year. And so our Bell campus is going to participate potentially, and so any of you who want to be baptized, that's going to be a good thing, and really excited about that. Also, I forgot to say, on July 4th itself, the sanctuary will be open from 9 to 10 a.m. We're going to lead through a prayer service. We have specific things. We're part of a national prayer initiative. We're a host site for that. And I want to encourage you, invite your friends to that too, just 1 hour. And they've given us a specific list of things that they want us to pray for and to lead through prayer in. And so that's going to be 9 to 10 a.m. on the 4th of July. So that's our 4th of July week. A lot of stuff. There will be stuff in your bulletin. We're going to have it on the calendar. We'll keep you aware of everything that's going on, but I wanted to let you know about all that stuff. With that said, if you have your Bibles, will you turn with me to Ecclesiastes chapter 8? I just want to get through all the announcements pretty quick because I really want to get into the Word. Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verses 14 through 17. You should have a handout that looks something like this. If you don't have one of those, is Garrett in here still, or is Garrett gone? Garrett, where are you at? You have handouts left over maybe? No? Does anybody need a handout? You raise your hand up and Garrett will find you. Okay, I think we're good though. So hopefully everybody's got their handouts. Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verses 14 through 17. King Solomon is working through some observations about humanity here in chapter 8. And in this passage, Solomon is going to present to us two problems, and both of these problems have the same solution. So there's two problems, one solution. And as we get into this passage, what we're going to see is that Solomon is talking about something that we're all probably familiar with in different ways. Maybe you've been at a job or you've been in an environment where you're talking to somebody and you don't understand something, and the person looks at you and just says, "That's above my pay grade." You ever had that happen to you at work? It's like really frustrating when that happens to you because you really want to understand something and someone's like, basically, "I have no idea, stop asking me." That's kind of their nice way of saying that. Sometimes it's not even very nice. I remember in the Army when I got sergeant, I got E5, got promoted to sergeant. I was in charge of a little squad, and we'd get our orders for the weekend because I was in the reserves, and so we'd get our orders for the weekend, and I'd be doing the morning brief, where my soldiers were in the formation, and I'm giving them the morning rundowns, the orders for our day and what we need to do. And inevitably, like every month, every weekend that we were together, I'd have somebody, as I'm working through the things that I was just giving orders. And I'd take my orders, I'd give them my soldiers and say, "Hey, here's what we're doing." And I've, some little brand new punk, just didn't understand anything. He's like, "Yeah, why do we have to do that?" choose. They tell me just like they tell you, you know? And it's like they never seemed to quite grasp the fact that we all just have to kind of do what we're told. And I would have to tell them, that's above my pay grade. I don't get to decide what's happening this weekend. We just have to do it. Now, what was so frustrating for me in that environment is we couldn't change it. There's no point in even asking me some of these things because I don't know the answers. Our job was to just do the very best we could with the orders we had. That was our goal as soldiers. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes that's true for us in our lives as individuals as we navigate this wonderful gift of life that God has given us. There are various aspects of humanity. There's various aspects of our life here on earth. There are some things that you and I don't understand. And I'm unfortunately in the position to tell you that there are some things in this life that none of us will ever understand until we get to the other side of heaven. Now, there's lots of things that we can learn more about. There's lots of things that are worth investigating, but there are various things that happen in this life that are simply above our pay grade. We don't have the full understanding of God. We don't have His wisdom. His ways are higher than our ways. Solomon observes two ways that this works out in humanity, two common general ways that this works out in our lives. He observes them and he gives us a solution to this problem, these two problems that we face. So the two observations he makes, what we're going to see is that some areas of life seem to be unjust and some areas of life are just unknowable. And then Solomon helps us to understand how we ought to handle those two areas of life. So look at the passage with me. Now, I've noticed that I made a mistake on your handout. I want to call it out right now. So when you get to the third point, that's actually supposed to be out of verse 15. So the solution comes in verse 15. I got that wrong on your handout, not 16 through 17. So you can correct that on your handout if you'd like to do that. But start with me at verse 14 here. Here's where Solomon makes the first observation. First problem. Says there's a vanity. So here's a problem. That's how he says it. Here's a vanity that takes place on earth. That there are righteous people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the wicked. And there are wicked people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the righteous. And I said that this also is a vanity. So he's observing here that sometimes terrible things happen to good people, righteous people, and sometimes really great things happen to terrible, wicked people. You see that? That the righteous people, sometimes to righteous people, it happens according to the deeds of the wicked, but to the wicked, it happens according to the deeds of the righteous. So sometimes good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. That's basically what he's observing. And he says in verse 15, and I commend joy, for man has nothing better under the sun but to eat and drink and be joyful, for this will go with him in his toil through the days of his life that God has given him under the sun. So if you have your Bibles or if you have your handout, you want to underline that or call attention to that, we're going to come back to it because that's the solution for us. Now here's the second observation. Here's the next vanity. It says, when I applied my heart to know wisdom and see the business that is done on earth, how neither day nor night do one's eyes see sleep. Then I saw all the work of God, that a man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. However much man may toil in seeking, he will not find it out. Even though a wise man claims to know, he cannot find it out. So there's, like I said, two problems. There's two issues that Solomon observes in humanity. In this life on earth, there's two major problems. One is that there are aspects of life that seem unjust. There are things that you and I will observe throughout our lives. We look at this situation or that situation and we just say to ourselves, that's not right. You know, it's not right that that wonderful person gets sick with cancer and dies prematurely. That seems unfair. You know, it's just not right that this unrighteous, deceiving, lying, conniving person continues to thrive in the workplace. They treat everybody miserably. They're mean to people, whatever it might be. They lie, they cheat, they steal, and yet they continue to prosper. And that just doesn't sit right with us. You guys know what I'm talking about? There are parts of life that you will see, that you will observe, that seem unjust. Doesn't it bother you? Don't you just want to make all of the things that seem unjust, don't you just want to make them right? You know, the bad people should get sick with cancer, you know, just the way our minds work. Now, that's a really awful thing to actually think, but, you know, it's just what we think. And it's like, why does this nice person get this thing, this illness? You know, and it's like, how are we going to determine who's good and who's bad, you know, in our human understanding? But this is just what hits our spirit, you know? It's like, why does that terrible thing happen to that person we say is so good? Why do all these great things happen to these people that we think are so bad? And we want to shake things up. We want to just change the way things operate in life because it doesn't seem right. And sometimes these issues that we observe, they really trip us up in life, and they really trip us up in our faith and our relationship with Jesus. One of the things that people will come back at you with when you're witnessing is they'll say, you know, if the Lord is so loving, why does he allow suffering? It seems unjust. Why do children die and suffer? That's one of the things people will say all the time. Because it doesn't seem right. Solomon observes that here. To righteous people, it happens according to the deeds of wicked. And to the wicked people, it happens according to the deeds of righteous. My friends, sometimes terrible things happen to really great people. It's just true. It's true. Godly people will suffer. You will suffer. You will suffer in this life in incredible ways. As a follower of Jesus, you will. Godly people suffer. Godly people are persecuted. Christians are martyred for their faith. Why? I mean, that's happening right now in countries around the world. Nigeria still, there's a terrible, terrible affliction of persecution against the Christian church. They're being slaughtered. You don't hear much about that in the news, but it's true. Godly people, sometimes they'll suffer because they're godly. People are meaner to them because they're righteous. Or they even kill them because they follow the Lord. You look at that and you say, God, why? And then sometimes you observe the opposite. Sometimes really great things happen to terrible people. It's like, Lord, how does this make sense? Wicked people sometimes just seem to prosper. They get all the promotions at work. They get all the attention because they're so terrible to people or because they complain so much. It's like the boss heaps even more praise onto them to keep them quiet. You ever notice that? It's like, how does this work? Because I'm quiet and I do my job and I work really hard and I go home and I don't make a fuss, like nothing good happens to me? And all the terrible people at work, they get all the good things? How does that work? Wicked people, they prosper. You see, wicked people, they even get praised. Where godly people will be persecuted for their godliness, wicked people will be praised for their wickedness. Make that make sense to me. There's a thing going on right now on Twitter. I don't know if anybody is on Twitter or just on the internet right now, but there's this thing happening right now. Like this week, it sparked up that caught my attention. But I was thinking about it when I was reading this, thinking about wicked people getting praised. There's this YouTuber, I'd never heard of him before, but there's this YouTuber right now that's he's going viral because he made a video about his wife getting an abortion because they found out their baby was potentially going to have Down syndrome. And so she's 5 months along into this pregnancy, and they decide to kill their child because there's a chance that the child would have Down syndrome. And so he made a video about it, and then he got on Twitter about it, and so he's what really gets me in this is he puts on Twitter about how they're grieving the loss of their child who they killed. That's how he frames it in the first sentence of his Twitter post. He's like, we're grieving the loss of our child and this and that. And people in the comments are like praising him for it. You're so brave for talking about this. That child wouldn't have had a good life. You're doing the right thing. Can you imagine anything more depraved? And he's getting praised. And I just think, I watch those things and I think to myself, it's unjust. It's unjust. Murder their own child and they're getting sympathy from other people and making money off of it. I can't think of anything less just. And you watch those situations, you say, Lord, why? Make that make sense. So it doesn't seem right to us. And, maybe it's not right. But one of the things that Solomon observes here, well, that isn't right. Obviously we don't agree with anything that's happening there. One of the challenges that face us in this life, though, is coming to grips with the reality that some things in our eyes just seem unjust. And we have to grapple with those things. Now, there's lots of things we can do. I can't get into, there's lots of different ways we can vote and change laws and do all that stuff, obviously, but there's still going to be unrighteousness. There's still going to be unjust. There's still going to be things that are unfair, always. That's going to be a consistent theme throughout this life. Solomon says, I made an observation. It's a problem. And he moves on to a second problem. He says, not only do things seem unjust, but there are other things that just seem unknowable. Like we can't, no matter how much we study, no matter how much we dive in, it just seems like there's some things that we just can't get to the bottom of. And we live in an engineering town. And engineers don't like things that they can't solve. That's a personality trait for a lot of people. Probably a lot of people in this room right now. So I don't like things that I can't know everything about. There's aspects to this life that no matter how many degrees you get, you will never understand fully. And that really irritates some people. I want to know it all. You see in verses 16 and 17, it says, when I applied my heart to know wisdom and to see the business that is done done on earth, how neither day nor night do one's eyes see sleep. It says, then I saw the work of God, that man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. It says, however much a man may toil in seeking, he will not find it out. Even when a wise man claims to know, he says he cannot find it out. There are aspects of this life, there are aspects of God's character and nature that we can never fully comprehend in this life. And that really bugs some people. So when you're witnessing to folks, and some people will go to the unjust thing, that the suffering, that sort of stuff. Some people will immediately go to that. I don't believe in the Lord because of this. Things look unjust. Other people will come to this and say things like, well, what about this? And go to the most obscure, most unknowable thing that, like, they want us to have the answer to. So a lot of people will get to things like creation. So, okay, you believe God created everything. Okay, well, who created God? And they'll just think that they got you. Who created God? And we say, nobody. He's eternal. What's interesting about the concept of eternity and something being eternal, having no beginning and no end? What's interesting about that is you and I can never truly fathom that. Our human brains cannot understand fully. We can say we understand it, but I'm telling you, even the wise man does not fully comprehend no beginning and no end. You can't. Our human brains can't understand it. It's beyond us. I'm totally content in saying I don't understand fully how all that works, but I know this. God has no beginning and he has no end. He is eternal. He always was and he always will be. I affirm it. It is true, but I can't fully understand it. Another thing that I turn to all the time that if you dive into this and it's just, how does this make sense? How do we as people have free will, but to choose, but God knows what you're going to choose. Like there's a tension there. God knows everything. He's sovereign, but he allows you to choose to be a part of his will or not. You have a choice. He gives you personhood. That's something, though, that our mind just can't you can never fully grasp the tension between those two things. But they're real. They're true. And so there's parts of, and this is what Solomon is getting at. There's these things that people will point to, and they just get stuck on these things. Some people get stuck on these aspects of life that just, they don't seem to make sense. We can't learn everything about them. And what happens to some people is they get so focused on these things that they can't fully understand that they just give up and they don't want to know God at all. Boy, what a missed opportunity for them. Don't be one of those people. Keep learning more about the Lord. He'll keep filling your mind with understanding. While there will always be mysteries for us to wrestle with, the Lord will continue to reveal more and more of his nature to you. Don't give up. There are going to be things that we cannot fully understand. Creation can never fully understand its creator. He's greater than us. But some people get stuck on those things. And some people refuse to admit that there are things they don't understand. What's really hard is when you're witnessing to somebody that thinks they have all the answers. And they don't. Those people are the most foolish of all. It's like, oh, I don't need Jesus. I got it all figured out. You know, I don't need you to tell me about the Bible. I don't need you to talk to me about that. I got it all figured out. I'll tell you what, those people are really hard to pastor in the church too. None of you are that way, praise God. None of you. I'm so thankful. But some people think they refuse to admit that they don't understand something. The smartest thing you can do is say, you know what? I don't fully understand that. But I promise you, if you pursue the Lord, that he'll reveal to you what you need to understand about him to be able to follow him. The best thing you can do when you're witnessing to somebody who's really struggling with these things and say, you know, I don't fully understand either, but his word tells us this, and his character tells us this, and his spirit has revealed this to me, and I've seen it in my own life. I don't fully understand. That's where faith comes in, yes? There are aspects of our relationship with Jesus where we just have to have faith. Is that stupidity? No. Keep learning. Keep diving in. Be intellectual. But you've got to understand, there's always going to be things in this life that seem unjust to you and that are completely unknowable to you. You've got to get comfortable with that because you're not God. And his ways are higher than our ways. So Solomon tells us how to deal with these two things. So maybe you're wrestling with one of these two things. Maybe one of those two things or both of them. Those are just really stuck in your craw and it's got you, limited in your relationship with the Lord. Here's how Solomon tells us to deal with this. Again, this is verse 15, not 16 and 17. Go back to verse 15. Solomon says, I commend joy. For man has nothing better under the sun but to eat and drink and be joyful, for this will go with him in his toil through the days of his life that God has given him under the sun. My friends, you might not like this answer, but here's what Solomon tells us to do. After he's observed everything, he says, yes, some things seem unfair. Yes, some things seem unknowable. Basically what Solomon is saying is, deal with it. Get comfortable with it. The Lord has called you to things in this life that you need to give your full focus to. I am not saying stop studying and stop growing. I'm saying the opposite. Keep pursuing more of the Lord always. But you need to give your life, your day-to-day life with the Lord, your full focus. God has given you a calling. He's given you a life to live. He's given you a job to work. He's given you a family to care for. And life becomes so much joyful and joy-filled when you focus on the issues that are right in front of you that are in your control. So what happens to some people is they get so focused on these things that are totally beyond them, totally beyond their control, and it just gets so in their mind, their mind is just so focused on this that it steals all their joy away from them. There's some people that are so focused on things that they have zero control over that it makes them miserable. is saying here, like, don't ignore those things. Participate, like, keep studying, keep working, keep growing, yes. But he says, I commend joy in your toil under the sun. This goes all the way back to chapters 2 and 3, where Solomon said, the key to life on earth is really quite simple. It is to find enjoyment and pleasure in the work of your hands that God has called you to. Some of you may remember that sermon. Like, life gets so much simpler when you just zero in on the calling God has given you right now and saying, okay, God's given me a family. I need to really zero in on that. Yeah, there are these big, huge issues I don't understand, but I do understand God's called me to my family. I do understand God's given me this job, and I need to work hard at it. I need to pick things up. I need to be the best employee I can be. I need to be a godly employee in the workplace. You know, my faith, I need to be investing in my faith and my relationship with Jesus myself. I'm getting so distracted by these things that I have no control over. I need to zero in. You can control your own faith, my friends. You should handle your salvation with fear and trembling. Sometimes people get so focused on these huge existential things that they have zero influence over, and they completely ignore their own personal faith. Handle your own faith. Handle your family and the influence you have in your family. Handle your career and the work that God has called you to. And what's so fascinating to me is when we focus on the things that God has called us to have some control over, some influence in, when we really zero in on those things, it's like life gets so much simpler and so much more joyful. You probably remember me saying, it's like my life lately, I've kind of reduced my life. Like, there's so much stuff going on. I've had to just reduce my life down to just a few things. And just when I'm struggling with whether or not I'm doing a good job, you know, just life gets stressful, and there's lots of stuff going on in the church, and, you know, lots of events, lots of people, lots of things, which is good. But when I get really, really stressed, and I'm just like, God, I don't know if I'm doing a good job, I have to just bring it in a little bit. Is my family good? Yeah, my family's good. Is my faith good? Yep. Okay, my faith is all right. Is my job good? I hope so. You guys can tell me later. Gently. It's like those three things. Is my faith good? Yeah. I'm spending time with the Lord. Okay. Is my family all right? This best season of my family, best season of my marriage. Had 17th anniversary a few weeks ago. I was just telling Bryce and Tanya this before service. Like, had my 17th anniversary, did the annual check-in. You know, that's when I talk to Sarah once a year. I'm just kidding. But I was like, hey, Sarah, you know, is our marriage good? And she's like, it's good. I was like, awesome. I'll talk to you next year. You know, that's awesome. Praise God. But that was good. Family's good. Kids are great. I'm having so much fun with my boys. All right. Start feeling better. Joy starts coming back. We get so focused on things beyond us. And I'm not telling you to not know what's going on in the world. I'm not saying that at all. But my friends, spend the majority of your attention on the things within your influence. God's given you a calling. He's given you a family. He's given you a career. He's given you influence. He's given you friends. He's given you faith. And Solomon's saying he commends joy. Joy comes when we're all in the areas of life that God has called us to be all in on. Be all in. You good? Good in your faith? You good with your family? You good with your job? You got those three things? Doesn't it feel good? The joy starts coming back. Worship team, will you help me? Maybe some of you are wrestling in one or all of those areas. I don't know. Maybe some of you are just really stuck on those big existential problems. I don't know where the Lord has you tonight, but we want to do something a little bit different on Wednesdays, especially through the summer. I just told you at the beginning of service, I really want us to engage with what the Lord is doing. And we want to provide that opportunity for you to all engage. So on Wednesday nights, every Wednesday after the sermon, we've been having the worship team lead us through some more worship. This is where we can get alone with the Lord and just listen to Him. But we're going to add a piece to that. And so I've asked some friends to help me. So Life Changers team is going to help me. They're going to come up here and pray with me. Pastor Bryce is going to come up and help me. And what we're going to do is we're just going to spread out up here, and we're going to make ourselves available. We just want to pray for you. And so here's how we want to do things through the summer. While the worship team is leading us after sermon, if you've got anything going on in your life, whether it be something attached to the sermon or something totally different, we want to pray with you. We want to spend time with you. If you need to get alone with the Lord, and you don't want someone to you just want to get alone with the Lord, alone with your thoughts, you want to pray, then come up and fill this altar space, and get down in the altars, that's fine. But if you want someone to pray with you, come up and approach one of us. We're happy to do that. Worship team's going to lead us. So would you stand with us right now? Let's ask the